free transfer admissions masterclass that I'm doing with the Redhead Academic. I am so excited to do that masterclass with her. I think it's going to be fantastic. Would you guys ever think that you'd see the day when I A, am not wearing winged eyeliner, and B, sitting on my couch? Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie, otherwise known as the Vintage Academic here on YouTube. I am a junior transfer student at UC Berkeley studying anthropology with a focus in archaeology, and I make fun vlogs and informational videos about community college, the transfer process, and life as a transfer student. Today's video will attempt to be a thorough and somewhat detailed guide on what you as a community college student will need to do in order to do the transfer process to a four-year university. Before we begin, I have two things I need to tell you. The first being that while the general information in this video is applicable to all community college students, this video is specifically geared to California Community College looking to transfer to a CSU or a UC or California State University or University of California, since that is my area of self-proclaimed expertise. And the second thing I need to tell you that this video is in conjunction with a free transfer admissions masterclass that I am doing in collaboration with the Redhead Academic here on YouTube and her college consulting business, Accepted Consulting. This masterclass is being offered on September 27th, 2020, and it will also go over the transfer process as well as our own personal transfer stories, transfer tips, and then a Q&A section at the end. If you are interested in attending that masterclass, check the link in the description below where you can sign up. It's free. I highly recommend coming to watch the masterclass if you are looking to figure out how the transfer process works. Okay, now that that's said, let's get into the video. I'm going to break this up into sections, and I'll put the timestamps for those sections in the description below to make it easier to navigate this video, so you can skip ahead to the sections that you need to know more about if you're coming back or returning to this video at some point in the future. And so this is going to be detailed, it's going to attempt to be thorough, and it's probably going to be long, so grab yourself something to drink, maybe a snack, and let's get into it. I myself have my iced matcha latte as per usual. Section number 1, how does it work? First of all, let's talk about how this whole transfer thing works in the first place. What is transferring? Why does community college exist? The point of community college is to provide you your first 2 years of your college education at a subsidized cost. And I put 2 years in quotation marks because not everybody gets through community college in 2 years. Some do it in less and some do it in more. For me, for example, it took me about 5 years on and off. The classes that you take are supposed to be equivalent to the lower division courses that you'd be taking at a four-year university during your freshman and sophomore year. When you have finished taking the classes that equate to your freshman and sophomore year, you can then apply to transfer as an upperclassman to a four-year university, assuming that you've met all of the requirements. This is designed to prepare you for your upper division coursework, and you would finish up your last 2 years as a junior and a senior at your new school. Now let's get into how that works, but first I have a couple of tips for you. My first tip is to meet with a transfer advisor to make a plan. Now let me repeat that, transfer advisor. I don't know about you, but my general academic counselors at my community college were not the most helpful. Most of what I know I learned through doing research, watching YouTube videos, finding the information on my school's website, meeting with advisors at the schools I wanted to go to, and going through the process myself. But in the last half of my last semester at community college, I met with a transfer advisor, and she was the most helpful person that I ever met with. She understood the transfer process, she knew what the requirements were, and if she didn't know, she knew where to find that information. So I always recommend seeking out a transfer advisor specifically because they should be better educated in the transfer process than a general academic counselor would be. And because they understand the process, they'll be able to help you formulate a plan for which courses you need to take and when you should take them. My other tip is to do your own research. So like I said, most of what I know actually comes from me doing my own research. In this video, I am going to give you an overview of all the things that you need to transfer to a CSU or a UC, but the most important thing that you can do for yourself is to learn where that information is so you can access it whenever you need it. And in addition, there's going to be specific information that you're going to need to know that I can't give you because it depends on your major and the college that you want to transfer to. I'm going to talk more about the IGETC in a second, but I do recommend looking up the term IGETC plus your school's name in order to find a PDF of it. Look on assist.org for information on the classes that you need to take for the major that you want to pursue, and spend time looking at the transfer pages on both your community college's website and the college that you want to go to. Becoming familiar with these pages will help you find the information more quickly and make it more accessible. Lastly, you can always always turn to the transfer center at your school. I find that the transfer center anywhere that I go has always been very helpful. Okay, now that I've given you my tips, let's actually move into what you need to do to transfer, the whole reason why I'm sure you're watching this video. So the first thing you're going to need to do is to satisfy your minimum requirements. What are minimum requirements? So it's kind of in the name. Minimum requirements are the things that the schools that you want to transfer to require you to have in order to be considered for admission to their school. So for example, in the California Community College system, we use the IGETC, which is the Intersegmental General Education Transfer Curriculum. This is an articulation agreement between the community college system and the CSU and UC systems, and it lays out all of the general education courses that are required for transfer to CSU or UC. The IGETC itself has some additional requirements, like all courses must be completed with a C grade or better, or I think it's a 2.0 GPA. The IGETC is also not appropriate for all majors and all campuses, especially when you're talking about private schools. So again, make sure you meet with your transfer advisor to make a plan. And the most important thing, the thing that just it gets me, it makes me a little upset, just a little bit, is the IGETC changes from year to year. So it is the student's responsibility to make sure that they're keeping up to date with the most recent IGETC. Now let's break down the IGETC a little bit. So the IGETC is used for transfer for both the CSUs and the UCs. The IGETC consists of 7 sections. There is English Communications, of which you will need 3 classes, Mathematical Concepts and Quantitative Reasoning, of which you will need 1 class, Arts and Humanities, you will also need 3 classes, Social and Behavioral Sciences, again you will need 3 classes, Physical and Biological Sciences, and you will need 2 classes, and one of those classes must be taken with a lab. The next 2 requirements differ depending on whether or not you're going to a UC or a CSU. So Area 6 is a UC requirement, and it is a language other than English. Area 6 can also be fulfilled in a few different ways, including completing that coursework in high school. So again, check your school's version of the IGETC to see what it does and doesn't apply. Meet with your transfer advisor. I failed out of French in high school, so I took sign language in community college. And then the last area is a CSU graduation requirement, U.S. History, Constitution, and American Ideals. So again, see your school's version of the IGETC to see which classes you're going to have to take, but for example, at my community college, you either took a political science class and a history class, or you took 2 specific history classes together. The next important part is units. Both the CSUs and the UCs require that you have at least 60 semester transferable units, or I think it's 90 quarter transferable units, with at least a 2.0 GPA or better, although the GPA requirement can change depending on which major you're going into, which university you're applying to, and then which college within the university you want to be in. To break it down a little bit, for example, my major, anthropology, is in the College of Letters and Science at UC Berkeley, and the minimum GPA requirement was a 3.0, but for some colleges or some majors that are more competitive, your GPA might be higher, such as the College of Engineering at Berkeley. The minimum GPA requirement is a 3.5. So again, this is where the research comes in. You're going to have to figure out what your specifics are outside of the general education IGETC transferable units and minimum GPA. Next is the out-of-state/private school section. So the reason why it's relatively easy to transfer to a UC or a CSU as a California community college student is because the CCC system has an articulation agreement with the CSU and the UC systems. This means that the community college that you're going to has matched its courses to another college's courses, so that the classes that you're taking are similar or the same to the ones that you'd be taking at the other school, and when you transfer you won't have to take any repeated courses. So like I said, here in California the community colleges have this articulation agreement with the UCs and the CSUs, and I do know that there are some private schools that my community college has articulation agreements, but I'm not sure about all of them. But for example, you would be able to transfer with a junior standing from Sacramento City College to USC because they also have an articulation agreement with that school. I hope that made sense. But if you are looking to transfer out of state or to a private school, my advice to you is again to meet with your transfer advisor and then to reach out to that school to understand what will be expected of you, what courses you'll need to be taking, and whether or not those courses are transferable. Next are your major and your college requirements. So again, I already discussed how depending on the college that you get into within your university, you may have different GPA requirements. In addition to your specific GPA requirement, there are major requirements. So now would be a fantastic time to get familiar with assist.org. Assist.org is a website that shows you which courses are equivalent between your community college and the school that you want to transfer to for your major. So as far as I remember, when I checked assist.org for transferring to UC Berkeley, Berkeley, I was required to take 3 courses: biological anthropology, cultural anthropology, and archaeology, and those were equivalent to the 3 core classes that you have to take at UC Berkeley in your lower division courses. But at UC Davis, I was required to take those 3 classes and then 1 additional class at my community college. So that just kind of gives you an idea that your coursework may differ depending on which school you want to transfer to and which major you're going to be in. Again, for specific transfer requirements, get familiar with the transfer page for the school that you want to go to, and then if you already know what major you want to pursue, get familiar with the major page for the school that you want to transfer to. I spent a lot of time on the anthropology page for UC Berkeley looking at their transfer information specifically, and that's where I got most of my information. I knew I had to take those 3 lower division classes. Okay, we've covered I Get C and units and all of those kinds of requirements. Next, let's talk about the transfer admission guarantee. I have already made an entire video about the transfer admission guarantee, which I will put in the card above and in the description below, so if you'd like more detailed information on that, go ahead and go there to give it a watch, but I will give a general overview of it here too. The transfer admission guarantee, or the TAG, is another articulation agreement program between the CCs and the UCs specifically. It is a program that guarantees transfer admission from your community college to a UC, assuming that you fulfilled all of the requirements that I talked about above. The I Get C, so your general education, your unit requirement, your GPA requirement, and your major requirements. 6 out of 9 of the UCs participate in this program, including UC Davis, UC Santa Cruz, UC Santa Barbara, UC Merced, UC Irvine, and UC Riverside. The only 3 that don't participate are UC Berkeley, UC San Diego, and UCLA. With the TAG, you can again apply for guaranteed transfer admission to one of those 6 UCs that participate in the program. Again, for more detailed information about how to use the I Get C, what you're going to have to do, all of that kind of stuff, check the description for a link to the video that I already made about it. Next, you're going to want to keep track of your transferable units using the Transfer Application Planner. So the Transfer Application Planner is also something that I go over in my TAG video, but it's a tool provided by the UC system for you to keep track of the classes that you've had, and it tells you which areas it fulfills and whether or not it's a transferable course. So it's a very easy way to compile all of that information into one place, and if you're planning on using the TAG, you have to use the Transfer Application Planner because that's where you submit your TAG application. So if you're going that route, you gotta fill it out anyways. Okay, next section, essays and application. So the UC application consists of 7 parts. The first section is about you, and this is where you put in all of your personal information, your contact information, your parents' information, citizenship and residency, and all of that kind of basic information about who you are. Next is campuses and major, and this is where you actually select the UC campuses that you'd like your application to be sent to, because the UC application is one application that gets sent out to all of the different campuses. In addition, this is also where you pick the majors that you'd like to pursue. I know some schools allow alternate majors, where if you don't get into your preferred major, they will consider you for your alternate major. UC Berkeley doesn't do this, but for all the other schools I apply to, I put anthropology as my preferred and linguistics as my alternate. Next is your academic history. This is where you put in all of your coursework, where you attended high school, which colleges you may have attended in the past, including your community college, and if you use the tab, you can import your coursework straight from the planner. Next is test scores. This is the space where if you have anything like APs or IBs to report, you can put them here. This is the place where you put things like work experience, volunteer, community service, and then also awards and honors that you've received. In my opinion, this section is really important because it's the chance to tell the UCs all of the extracurricular stuff that you've gotten the chance to do. So for example, on my application, I put my involvement in the anthropology club and the honor society on campus, all of the volunteer stuff that I've done, my internship with a museum, and then my work experience at my office. Next is scholarships and programs, and to be completely honest, I'm not 100% sure what this section is for. I think it's so that you can tell them the kinds of things that you're interested in so that they may or may not consider you for certain scholarships, but I'm still not sure how that works. And last but not least, the essays, the personal insight questions, the part that everybody wants to know about. Again, I actually already have a couple of videos on the PIQs. I've made a video reading you my accepted essays, and then I also have a video where I compare and contrast my accepted essays against my rejected essays, because I actually did apply once before I got accepted. So I kind of go over my rejected essays and tell you what was wrong with them. So if you're interested in seeing those, I will also put a link to those in the description. It'll give you a more in-depth analysis of the things that I think that people are looking for when they're reading your essays. For a more in-depth look at the personal insight questions, be sure to sign up for the free Transfer Admissions Masterclass that I will be doing with the redhead academic and her business accepted consulting. The masterclass is a source where we will be discussing at length the personal insight questions as well as the UC application with an admissions expert. So for a more in-depth look at that, be sure to check out the link in the description and sign up for the masterclass. Okay, let's get back to the video. Okay, I think that's all I have for the majority of those sections. There are two more things I want to talk about, so thank you guys for sticking through this with me. The next thing I should mention is the CSU ADT, or the Associate's Degree for Transfer program. The ADT is specifically designed to be a pathway from community college to the CSU system. So it's kind of similar in the transfer admission guarantee in that it guarantees you admission, but from community college to a CSU instead of UC. It has similar requirements to transferring to a UC in that you have to fulfill the IGETC, you have to fulfill your GPA requirements, and then you also have to have a minimum of 18 semester units, specifically in your major or area of emphasis, and that's what gets you the ADT certification. Again, if you're interested in pursuing an ADT, I recommend looking on your community college's website for further and more in-depth information and meeting with your transfer advisor so that you can get that certification, so that when you go to apply to the CSUs, they'll see that you have that and they will give you a spot in the CSU system. Last thing to talk about, financial aid. This doesn't really have anything to do with the application process, but financial aid is so incredibly important. It is vital that you fill out your FAFSA application, or the free application for federal student aid. I think that's what it's called. This is the ultimate place for getting your financial aid. Filling out this form makes federal funding available to you specifically as a student. It's where you get things like the Pell Grant, and the FAFSA is also where your school gets your financial aid information, so if your school is going to offer you any additional financial aid, they're going to get that information from your FAFSA. If you fill out this form, it is very possible that you will get at least some financial aid, but if you don't fill it out at all, you're definitely not going to get financial aid unless you're applying for outside or private scholarships. Please just fill it out. It's worth it. It doesn't take very much time. Do your FAFSA. Okay, I think that's all that I have for the moment, so let's do a quick summary. The first thing I talked about was meeting with a transfer advisor and making a plan to figure out your major and your coursework. The second thing I talked about was learning to do your own research concerning the transfer process and be your own advocate when it comes to tracking down this information. If you're watching this video, you're doing a fantastic job starting here, because watching this video and getting this kind of information is a good place to start when doing your own research. The third thing that I talked about was the minimum requirements for transfer, including the IGETC, units, GPA requirements, and major requirements. The fourth thing that I talked about was major and college requirements, using assist.org to see which classes are transferable for your major, and then how to find the specific requirements for your college. The fifth thing that I talked about is the transfer admission guarantee and how it works. The sixth thing that I talked about was the transfer application planner, where you can keep track of all of your courses, whether or not they're transferable, which areas they fulfill. The seventh thing that I talked about was the UC application, the sections of the UC application, and then the basics of the essays. The eighth thing that I talked about was the Associate's Degree for Transfer to a CSU program that guarantees you placement in the CSU system. And then the last thing that I talked about was the importance of financial aid. Please just fill out your FAFSA. You'll be doing yourself a favor. Filming this video has been cursed. I've received 2 phone calls and my SD card filled up because I've been filming for so freaking long. Let's finish this video. What I was saying was, wow, that's a lot of information, so I'm gonna wrap up this video here. Anything that I mentioned in this video that is linkable will be linked in the description below. Make sure you check those out, especially watching my videos that go into further depth and more detail on the subjects that I discussed in this video, because this was supposed to be a big overview of all the things that you need to do to transfer, and some of those videos go into more detail, as well as the links to the actual pages on the UC Systems website. Those will be indispensable to you for your transfer process. Don't forget to sign up for the free Transfer Admissions Masterclass that I'm doing with the Redhead Academic. I am so excited to do that masterclass with her. I think it's going to be fantastic. So please come and watch and learn. Don't forget to leave me a comment if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to help. Don't forget to check out my social media links, which will also be linked below, and check out my Instagram for more daily updates. And I think that's it. Thank you all so much for watching and being here today. I super appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. I'm gonna go take a nap. Bye.